Although I don't have a toaster, so I can't help you with that.
Happy belated birthday, Ross.
Oh, thank you.
How's it cross on my birthday?
Is he down?
Yeah, he was.
I didn't know he was down there.
Oh, I can imagine that was like.
And Jake's birthday is Monday.
Oh, yeah. You get all those.
Right.
Hey, how are you? Good.
I'm not sure. How about you? Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I'm looking at, because I can at least talk about that and memorize. Yeah. Yeah. I screwed up like 2 of them. Yeah.
Oh, there was one. Yeah, even like two. Anyway.
Alrighty, hi everybody. Thanks for coming today. Nice day out there today. Dan DePodwin is here, meteorologist with AccuWeather, graduated from Penn State in 2011. Dan's been here for a discussion before, so this one should be another great one. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Ryan. As I was saying earlier, I think this is the first time in 2 or 3 years it's been someone other than Dan Tomaso out there doing this when I've given one. So it's good to be handing the reins off to someone else here. So as I've done in some of the previous discussions I've given here, I'll start with an overview of some of the cool things that have happened in weather recently, and then we'll talk about the current weather going on here in the Northeast and the rest of the country. Obviously, the warmest day of the spring it looks like here today. Already up to 55 here, I think, and I think the high for the year here is, what, 58? So probably break that here in the next hour or two. As Ryan said, I graduated in 2011, been at AccuWeather for 3.5, coming up on 4 years actually in July, so time does fly. And I started as an operational meteorologist there and have now moved into more of a research and development role, working on our forecast systems. So this, I'm sure most of you have seen this photo, but it's worth putting up here because it's so awesome. Typhoon Misak, or Maysak, I guess, in the Pacific approaching the Philippines. Luckily, it will weaken, and it has started to weaken since this photograph was taken before it hits the Philippines later this weekend. So that's good news. We don't have another Haiyan on our hands here, but that photo is too good not to show. So I wanted to briefly talk about something that I'm not sure if you guys have heard of in the last week or so, but there was some historical flooding that occurred in the Atacama Desert in Chile. And I think I know when I was in school, I never looked a ton at global weather, but now working for a company that forecasts for all around the world, it's really interesting to see all the different weather that occurs around the globe. So The Atacama Desert is west of the Andes Mountains in Chile here. And there's a city here, I think it's pronounced Antofagasta, and were places in this desert here where I heard from a couple people at work that where it's supposedly has not rained in 100 to maybe several hundred years in some places in this desert because it's west of the Andes Mountains, so it's in the rain shadow. But they picked up a decade's worth of rain in just a short period of time last week in this area as an upper level low stalled just to the west off the coast of Chile. And there's these two rainfall amounts here. This is in Spanish here, but we can sort of figure it out. This is the 24-hour rain total. I believe it's in millimeters, so you have 9.9 and 23.6, and this is the normal annual rainfall. So the normal annual rain is 1.7. They have close to 24 millimeters of rain just from this one system alone, and it caused flooding like this. Let's see if we can just open up.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing what a half inch of rain or less in a place that receives a half inch of rain in 40 years, what happens when that occurs. It's amazing. I'm sure I was reading about this area of the world, and they were saying too that there was snow that happened, not much snow, but just some snow that happened several years ago that caused just complete disruption. People didn't know what to do because they don't see it. It doesn't happen. See if this gets any better here. Not that that's not good enough, but yeah, you can see all that.
I showed some of that on Weather World last night.
Did you? Yeah.
That's there's usually no water there.
Yeah. There's no
It's also interesting to note that that desert is where, when NASA and the European Space Agency want to test their Mars rovers, that's where they test it. Because it's so barren and so otherworldly that it is considered to be a proxy for Mars.
I think they've also filmed some space
Some of the
movies.
Star Trek stuff has been filmed there.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool place and pretty desolate place, but clearly just not much rain can lead to complete chaos. And unfortunately, some people perish as well during this event. This next slide, the next two slides, this is information that was tweeted by one of our meteorologists at AccuWeather. So I have to thank Anthony Sagliani. He's a great follow on Twitter if you want international weather at Anthony Weather. He did a great job forecasting this ahead of time. This was the forecast from the GFS 108 hours in advance with a 4 standard deviation 500 millibar low off the coast of Chile. You can see it on the 500 millibar forecast map, and here's the standard deviation on the left here. This was done, on the 22nd for the 26th. So it's a pretty good forecast of this really anomalous event. So it's just.
Can you go back? I just
Sure.
want to.
Yeah.
Were you going to say anything about Antarctica?
I wasn't, but
Because the same
good.
convoluted pattern that helped that
Good
blow
point.
cut off, that ridge pointing towards Antarctica, some research base on the Antarctic Peninsula measured a temperature of 63.5 Fahrenheit last week, which, if verified, would be the highest temperature ever measured by a thermometer in Antarctica.
That's a great point.
So that highly convoluted pattern had a couple southern hemisphere extremes associated with it.
Yeah, it's sort of tough to get your head around if you're used to looking at the northern hemisphere, but obviously the flow here is, is the other way around as it is in the northern hemisphere. And this is a ridge here, so and obviously the trough up here that produced the heavy rainfall for the Atacama Desert. But that's a great point. That probably the highest, if confirmed, the highest temperature on record in Antarctica. Shifting gears to the U.S. here. As we all know, March was cold. Steve has done a great job tweeting some stats over the last few weeks about March in State College. It was the third coldest January to March on record here, and the coldest February and March as well. And from the temperature departure map here, clearly unusually cold, 6 to 10 degrees, and that's impressive over an entire month. And that followed a month of February that was pretty similar in terms of being 6 to 10 degrees colder, or even more in some places. So to have that sustained over such a long period of time is very impressive. And obviously, at the same time as it was cold in the Northeast, it was very warm out west, and continued to have the one of the snowiest winters in some of mountains in Sierra on record. I think they have like 5% or something like that of snowpack out there. And they just, yesterday for the first time, California issued mandatory water restrictions. So it's going to be, looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty terrible summer out in the west. Although it looks like in the next few weeks we might see a trough try to dig into the west, which would be good news if we could cool it down and get a little bit of rainfall. And here's precipitation. The storm track in March was basically from Texas and up through the Ohio Valley. You can see the above normal precipitation into the mid-Atlantic. I think this is interesting. You can see in Pennsylvania sort of the almost a rain shadow effect of the Appalachian Mountains in a way. Here we have less. We were below normal, at least in March, and off to our west we were above normal. So that's an interesting feature on this map, I think. And more dry weather, obviously, in California and up across the Great Basin and into the Central Plains. And it's interesting to note here that on the, despite the fact that they had above normal precipitation across the Ohio Valley and even into the deep south, there was a dearth of severe weather. There really wasn't any severe weather during the month of March until the last week or so. In fact, here's a tornado count, 37. This is as of March 30th here. So 37 tornadoes. The average annual trend is 222 through March 30th, so well below the normal. And this is the last 10 years worth of data. As it accumulates throughout the year, you can see this line here is 2008, this top one, the really unusual year. But we're all the way down here at the bottom with 37, so we're well below the normal and well below the last 10 years as well. So it's an unusual year. We've only had, again, 37 here. The only comparable year in the past 10 is 2010, which had 79 to this point, 79 tornadoes. So I was reading an interesting blog by some professor at the College of DuPage in Iowa, I think, and he was noting that if you look at the lifted index anomalies for March, this map here is January through March lifted index anomaly maps. You can see how stable compared to normal the eastern United States was. Lots of positive lifted index anomalies. The mean flow during the winter from January to March here with the ridge across the west and the trough in the northeast really, drove the cold air southward. A lot of dry Canadian air too, really, and not a lot of moisture, and unstable air from the Gulf of Mexico. And here's the precipitable water anomaly here on the right for this winter. And you can see that there was some above normal precipitable water values across the Gulf Coast, which does make sense given the fact they were above normal in precipitation for parts of the winter. But I thought it was interesting that what this professor talked about, the fact you had warm sea surface temperatures in the East Pacific as well as that sort of helped the ridge maintain its position across the West Coast, and you had a flow from the northwest across much of the U.S., and that allowed for really not a lot of Gulf moisture to return northward throughout the winter, causing such a lack of tornadoes across the southern U.S., despite the fact they had above normal precipitation. And I thought it was interesting to compare these anomalies for this year to the other year in the past 10 that had lower than normal, or that had fairly low tornado counts, which was 2010. It's a little different in terms of what you see, but obviously there's still in the middle map here more stable air than normal with the higher lifted index anomalies, positive anomalies here in the southeast. This year is different in terms of the precipitable water. You see much lower than normal precipitable water across the southeast, so that was obviously a contributing factor in 2010. So it's interesting, both 2015 and 2010 had much lower than normal tornado values, but maybe for different reasons in terms of the pattern setup. That's just something that I thought was interesting, and again, pulled from the generation of that idea was from some professor at the College of DuPage. Any questions on that?
I think it's a difference between because here with it being warmer to the north and colder to the south in the heights,
yeah,
you had less shear.
That's a good point.
So this is probably dearth of tornadoes due to less shear. The other one is just it's too friggin' cold at the surface. It's just stable.
Yep, that's a good point. We'll move from that into the current weather going on. And we'll look at the last 24 hours here and sort of moving from the severe weather that didn't occur in March to severe weather that's now starting to occur here late March into early April. We had some more reports yesterday. with this front that's moving across the nation. So this is the last 24 hours. You see we have a system moving northeastward through Minnesota and up into Canada here and deepening as it does so. And getting more organized. You've got this cold front here slicing through the middle of the nation, moving eastward, and that's what helped trigger some of the severe weather yesterday across Nebraska, northern Kansas, and into Iowa as well. And we've had this high pressure area sitting across the northeast, which has helped us head. Although yesterday wasn't a fantastic day, but it was warmer and it was fairly sunny. Although we had some clouds here and there throughout the day. Just east of here, though, yesterday it was really quite sunny for much of the day. We sort of got stuck in some of the clouds throughout the midday hours yesterday. And this high has moved off to the east here by this morning, and this system continues to progress eastward as this low continues to deepen up in Canada. And because of this cold front here triggered some severe weather reports yesterday across the nation's midsection, a couple of things along the dry line too in Texas. Not a busy day, but compared to some of the days when we've had nothing in the past month, certainly a bit more active than recently. Current visible satellite loop of the U.S. here, you can see the storm system moving across the middle of the nation. Here into the east are clouds starting to fill in here across the western PA with a very high cirrus deck now straightening eastward, which we can see outside here. But much of the east looks fantastic here today, with, as you would expect, with high pressure sitting off the east coast and slowly sliding away, having good warm advection on the backside of that high, giving us the nicest day of the spring. And behind this front, we're nice and dry across the plains and clear, with some clouds here across the front range as well. You can still see all the snowpack here. There's a load of snowpack. I've read something that is 40 to 50 inches in many places in parts of Quebec and Ontario. So until that really all melts, you still have opportunity for colder air to really filter down. So it may take a while to warm up, especially across the Great Lakes and southern Canada here this spring. Here's the current radar in the northeast. I'll loop this here as we've got some rain moving in to western Pennsylvania currently. This is not the cold front. Your cold front's back across the Midwest here. This is sort of a leading vorticity maxima that's sliding eastward here, causing this breakout of showers, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder throughout here. But the nastier storms are here back in Indiana into southern Illinois. And this is the area, southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, into the Paducah region, where we're looking to maybe see some more severe weather this afternoon into tonight. And then maybe also across Kansas as well. The front sort of stalls out through here as we head into this evening. We'll look at that in a minute. So an active day across the Ohio Valley with some rain, and definitely starting to look more like spring on the weather maps. And a couple of showers across the southeast, and pretty dry elsewhere. Again, some precipitation across northern Colorado. This might be some snow. I haven't looked at what's actually falling there. But I know that we're expecting some snow across the Front Range the next couple of days. We have some snow in western Nebraska. Cheyenne's reporting snow as well. Still in the 40s in Denver, though. But you can see the milder air to the south here, 70s in Oklahoma City, and colder air pressing from north 40s and 30s across portions of Wyoming. And you can see the front pretty clearly. Down the see the front located through the southern plains. Good southerly flow ahead of it, and nice the northerly flow here, northeasterly behind it here. So lots of moisture coming on northward with dew points in the 60s, and then much drier air behind the front. So the question is, when does this rain get here? We'll start with the local forecast over the next couple of days, and then expand out to look at these severe weather. Warm front off to our north, cold front still off to our west, and high pressure, as we mentioned, off the east coast. And with that warm front to our north, we are much warmer than we were yesterday. In fact, 25 degrees warmer in some places across western New York, 16 degrees warmer here at State College than this time yesterday, and obviously much colder here behind the front across the central and northern plains. So here we are at about 18 Z. This is from the 6Z run of the GFS, and you can see it does a pretty good job depicting the precipitation across the Ohio Valley, as well as the northern part of Colorado and western Nebraska here. And this all slides east as we head into the evening here. This first batch sort of dies out, though, this batch that we have back here in eastern Ohio right now. been looking at some of the short range modeling here this morning. This is the 12Z 4-kilometer NAM, which actually does a pretty poor job at depicting this piece of rain across eastern Ohio, as did the 6Z as well, although it has it as it moves further eastward. So I thought the rapid refresh, at least the one I looked at earlier this morning, did a pretty good job depicting this piece of rain here across eastern Ohio that slides off to the east here throughout the rest of the afternoon, and it starts to fizzle as it does so. So a couple showers here look to move on through as we head towards sunset. This time step here, probably about 22 or 23 Z. Yeah, 22 Z here this evening, so 6 o'clock. So it looks like right around dinner time we get some wet weather with this first batch that moves through. Cold front obviously still far back to the west, but you can see this vorticity piece here at 18 Z this afternoon on 0 across Ohio, and it slides off to the east through 0 Z. Sort of gets sheared out as it does so. Just a few pieces of energy in the flow helping to cause this batch of rain that's moving off to the east here. So looks like the clouds will thicken up here, and then we'll get some wet weather as we head towards the evening tonight. But it still stays on the mild side, which is nice even through much of the day tomorrow. This system continues to slow down. The front sort of starts to wash out as well, and finally sags off to our south, and then maybe even tries to return north as the slow develops along the front as we head into Friday evening, and then Friday night as the slow deepens and moves up into the Canadian Maritimes and brings some more snow to the far interior portions of New England, maybe parts of the St. Lawrence Valley as well for the day Saturday. So winter doesn't want to end yet as you head further north across the interior northeast. Locally here, though, looks like, again, we get some wet weather for a short time this evening, probably dry out for a bit through the first half of the night. Maybe another batch tries to slide on in here as we head towards daybreak tomorrow, or at least after midnight tonight. And then tomorrow the question is, how far south, where does that slug of moisture try to work its way eastward along the frontal boundary here as we move through the day tomorrow. Interestingly, the 4-kilometer NAM is very unimpressed with the rain here tomorrow. I don't know if I buy that, but here's tonight. Obviously, that first batch fizzles out. Maybe some more showers later at night. And then this is tomorrow at 15 Z tomorrow. You see it's just sort of a cloudy day across the region here. And as you get through the day, it stays mainly dry. Maybe some showers around, but no really significant heavy rainfall. Heavy rain doesn't come through until tomorrow night to early Saturday, and then we dry on out. So that's one idea of how it unfolds. Either way, tomorrow looks like a pretty cloudy day, some showers around. I think the heaviest rain tomorrow stays to the south, and we get the steadiest rain tomorrow overnight as the front comes through and as that low deepens moves off to the northeast. Quickly take a look at some severe weather potential today across the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. As we talked about here, obviously you have this stalled front sliding north of the Ohio Valley today back across the Kansas-Oklahoma border, and a lee cyclone, starting up some lee cyclogenesis in the lee of the Rockies here. And this lee cyclone starts to move on to the east as we head through the evening tonight, and that helps to be the focus point for some of the severe weather across the Missouri and Arkansas border later this evening. And then that is what rides up along the front and deepens as it heads off into the Canadian Maritimes by Saturday. So you have this low pressure area moving eastward. You have a stalled front. You have plenty of moisture surging in from the south or from the Gulf, and colder, drier air aloft coming in from the north. And you have some decent upper level energy too, but this isn't a huge severe weather outbreak. You don't have that really good negatively tilted trough coming through the Mississippi Valley, but enough here in the flow to cause some issues later on this evening. Look at some of the severe parameters across this region. Here is Cape, model Cape from the NAM by 8 p.m. tonight. Plenty of Cape and instability across the Mississippi Valley here. Look at dew points again. We have plenty of moisture at the surface, with dew points well into the 60s across this region as well. A good low-level jet streaking on northward here across Arkansas. this is where the focus point, I think, is for severe weather later today, right in here. We'll look at the SPC in a minute. And this is 0 to 6 kilometer shear, I think so. Yeah. 0 to 6 kilometer shear this evening, as well as low-level shear. Some decent low-level shear value showing up as well. There is a small threat tornado. I think the SPC has a 5% area. Definitely not a textbook tornado case, but enough shear in the lower levels to probably, I think they have mentioned an isolated tornado or two across this region this evening. And some higher school water values as well. Something to note here is that, and I know the SPC mentioned this as well, is that they're worried about some training of storms later tonight across the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee, Kentucky area, as you have a pretty well-aligned flow. You have a southwest flow basically at 700, a pretty similar flow at 500 as well, and 850 flow out of the southwest. So a pretty well-aligned flow. A lot of these storms may move across the same area from southwest to northeast and maybe cause some flooding issues here later tonight. And just to sort of confirm what we're talking about here, the experts at the SPC have an enhanced area for today across that region, basically the Missouri-Arkansas border and into the Paducah, Cape Girardeau area and into western Kentucky. And now we got plenty of colors on these maps now with their new system. But so marginal and slight enhanced, I don't know. You asked me, I wouldn't know what those meant, but that's a discussion for another time. And maybe some storms, again, like we saw yesterday along the dry line in Texas, and also as some elevated storms in western Kansas as this Lee cyclone moves on out to the east later this evening. And we're headed towards the end here, so I'll wrap up briefly with the longer extended range. Much of the winter, as we saw those 500 millibar anomaly maps, there was a ridge across the west coast and into Alaska that helped really funnel the cold air southward across the eastern U.S. Here's the 8 to 10 day 500 millibar mean forecast from the GFS and the Euro. And you can see finally we see a pattern somewhat breakdown, but the ridge here is a bit further east based, and you have a good southeast ridge trying to pop up here along the east coast and a trough over Alaska. So the pattern definitely seems like it's changing a bit, but you still have this pocket of low height anomalies across Hudson Bay, and with that cold and air, a lot of that snowpack still there. This may take a while to finally erode out. So there's probably chances for still cold shots here through April. I don't think we see a crazy warm up where you see sustained, really above normal temps for a long period of time. But it definitely looks like it's normal, it's slightly above through and into the middle of the month, which will certainly feel great compared to what we've seen throughout much of the winter. And this sort of agrees with the mean temperature anomaly maps on the GFS. The ensemble mean here in the middle, sort of near normal, so tries to spike to above normal. As we head out, this is April 11th, and then 12th, 13th, 14th. That goes away for some reason. But you can see the general theme here on all these different ensemble numbers is that the eastern U.S. now tries to get near to above normal in most of the ensemble numbers. And that seems to be what the pattern across the Pacific is telling us too. So there is hope for spring here in central Pennsylvania. So I'll end with that.
If that height anomaly verifies, your forecasters will be busy next week with all kinds of records. I'm talking about 500 millibar that you showed.
Yep.
Does that look like some crazy blocking over
Sure
there?
does. Yep.
Yeah, let's say England.
We'll have record highs in Antarctica and the North Pole.
Well, and if the one on the right verifies that cutoff low down there, I can't tell geographically where that is.
Here?
Yeah, that thing. That's not supposed to be there.
That's true. That is that's northern Turkey across is that the Black or the Caspian Sea, and into parts of like Romania, Bulgaria.
Who does Turkey? Is that Brett?
No, not Brett. No, there's a couple of guys I think that do Turkey, but yeah, it definitely seems like it's been an interesting winter across that region. There's been a couple of flooding and but some flooding and heavy snow in parts of Pakistan, and several heavy snow events in parts of Turkey as well. It's been an interesting winter across the Middle East. Lots of
interrupted your applause.
No, that's okay. I shouldn't have started. I was going to say, anybody have any questions or comments for Dan? Otherwise, well, thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming. Any other Thoughts? Great. Well, next week is Lee Grenchie, who I've never met, but I know that he's a very involved member of the department. He'll be here, and we'll also have 20 students from State College High here who are coming on a tour, and they're going to stop in for the weather briefing. So if you want a seat, try and get here early, but we'll make room. So there'll be plenty of room. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the warm. 62 with your right? 58, 9. It'll be 4 years. Yes. Yeah. Right? I know. Thank you.